You're very welcome back to Late Night Live. We're here talking about some of the stories that have been in the news today. Now, I'm stuck there. So let's go on to our next one. Segregation by income has increased in 11 of 13 major European cities, with the worst culprit being Madrid. In London, the richest 10% of its residents own 60% of the city's assets, while the top 10th of London earners take home around 4.5 times as much as the bottom 10th. With the full impact of the 2008 financial crisis still to take hold, many predict inequality to grow further. So do we think, is there any way of reversing this trend now? Are they surprising statistics?
Well, I don't think they are at all. Like, especially in London, like when you've got this massive housing bubble from foreign investors. This is like something the government claim the economy is propped up on, but this is why you get like these distorted figures from like a growing economy. I think from your housing bubbles, from wealthy foreign investors often building properties and like not even living in them, and you get this. You do get this gentrification. Across the not just in the capital, but in London, in Manchester, and in a lot of cosmopolitan cities. It seems to be the ongoing trend that a lot of people have been systematically priced out of the affluent areas. Yeah.
Sorry, Trevor, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I found this very interesting because I mean, that is the case, absolutely the case in this country, and especially in London, which is a special case. But I mean, as it said earlier, you know, in Madrid is the worst.
Madrid's the worst, apparently, yeah.
And it's all over Europe, and in fact, indeed, all over the world.
Even the Scandinavian countries and that, you know, Oslo, Stockholm, social housing's been sold now to private,
I think
private
it's just
owners.
It is as you said earlier in the last thing, a systemic thing, right? It is, what would you call it? Globalization. If you mix globalization, right, mass migration, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, neoliberalism, and you stick it all in a pot and mix it up, this is what you get out the other end. And to expect more of it, it's going to get worse, right? Because that's the system we've got, and that's the. So, unless things change.
You mentioned Madrid there, Trevor. So a big problem there is a lack of affordable housing, with a lot of sort of professionals in their 30s and that's choosing to stay living at home because they can't actually afford. What kind of impact do you think we're looking at now down the line with that?
With social housing?
Sorry, with all those symptoms, really, like a lack of affordable housing, people living at home with their parents for longer.
Well, the thing is, in Spain, I believe that home ownership isn't like it is in Britain. You know, it's never been as big.
It is quite unique, I think, here in Britain, and I think Ireland is the same as well. We want to own our own space, don't we? It's quite important. Whereas in Europe, they're much more inclined to rent, but I think that even rents are going through the roof as well.
Well, there you go. I mean, if rent goes through the roof, you see, it's the total imbalance. It's a total imbalance in the economies. You know, and it's sort of
and it's not down to anyone. It's not anyone's fault. Like I'm 24, for instance, and my generation, like we're going to be we're completely condemned to, like, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to afford a house or raise a family or afford any of these things that were taken for granted in the past, and it's not anyone's individual fault.
Do you feel that, Ricardo? So do you feel that, and would your generation have that kind of feeling in Manchester? A gentrification, a being priced out of the market kind of feeling. Is that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you're not from a particular background, like I think you can see it in I was out in the northern quarter with my friend the other night, and she said like this feels exactly like London.
Right.
And obviously like that can be good in many ways, but I think that just is symptomatic of the kind of gentrification that's going on, and like a lot of people couldn't understand what the hell I was saying. Like it was just like they couldn't understand my accent, and I think that just goes to show you, like, you're in the north and no one could understand me.
No one could understand you.
Yeah.
It's a good example, isn't it, though, of something gone too far. If we say it's starting to feel like London, that's what we know gentrification.
Yeah, that's kind of like the benchmark. Like if this is starting to look like Shoreditch, then we're going a bit too far.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
They use London's East End as an example. And as we know, you were mentioning this earlier on, Trevor, so you have to be careful now. I'm going to mention what this protest was, okay? Yeah. It was called expletive parade. That was F parade. Their point was that the East End of London, as we all know, anyone who grew up in EastEnders, working class kind of people, working class Londoners, first port of call for new arrivals, that would be Irish, all kinds of immigrants. So obviously I'm going to say Irish first one that comes to my mind. But now what we're talking about is luxury homes, luxury flats, nobody can afford them, and as you said, cereal cafes. Now what is the impact of gentrification going to be down the line, if that's the stage we're at now?
Well, I think it's a kind of like, I think this phrase has been used many a time, social cleansing, and I think that is what you'll get. Like, you'll just get a certain class of people, and then the kind of poorer communities will just be feeding on the scraps, like on the outskirts of these metropolitan areas.
So they're being pushed, the poorer
to the periphery.
Well, I mean, you can't even, I mean, in fact, a lot of people who are born and bred in London, are being rehoused as places as far as the Midlands.
Right.
Because there's just there's
no homes in London.
No homes in London. These are people who come from London, who are Londoners, right? And I just think there's gonna be, like they've got walls and barbed wire fences and that in various, I think in some various countries. I don't know if it's, where was I reading this now? But you go to extremes, you get extreme poverty in the barrios.
Segregation,
right?
You mean?
Yeah, and it's totally segregated, right? I think it's in some places in Brazil.
Because London is like your perfect example, because it's got poverty and wealth like right next to each other. It's almost on top of each other.
Oh, it really is. We're just saying, the producers just saying in my ear there, it's the epitome really of north-south divide London, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you can be walking down a very, very swanky flash houses kind of street in London and go around the corner to squalor. You can go around the corner to, suddenly you don't feel even safe. Like they're living there kind of side by side in a way, but that's what you're talking about is being pushed out. That's in the middle of the transition, I guess.
Well, this sort of thing, I mean, it's been going on in the developing world, if you want to call it that, right? It's been going on in the developing world a long time, right? Quite a long time, and it's coming here now. This separation between rich and poor.
Up north? Do you mean to Manchester?
Well, to Britain.
You mean to Britain?
Yeah, it's coming here now. It's been going on for a long time. What it is, it's just the chickens coming home to roost with this neoliberalism. That's all it is, unchecked. Right, and nobody has the will to do anything about it.
Well, this is what I was going to ask next. How do we address this? How do we address this segregation, imbalance in our societies?
Well, I think we need a return to like the value of being social and the value of communities, and the fact that as people, like, we don't have to be defined by property and wealth. Like, we don't have to be perpetually enthralled to the economy. Like, the economy is an abstract thing. Like, we're human beings, we're physical human beings, we interact with each other, we enjoy life. The economy, it's an invention. It's not an actual thing.
It's not natural.
Yeah, but
no,
it's man-made, and now it's in charge.
Man-made, but I mean, well, the thing is, it's man-made within the interests of some, and not in the interests of others. So therefore it is a real thing, you know what I mean? It's what you do with the resources. And I know it's the old class war argument, and we haven't moved on, and have we really moved on, and all the rest of it, but I'm afraid I think that what value you put on wealth, like you say, wealth and property.
Tony Blair once said, like, we're all middle class now. When New Labour come, we're all middle class now. But if you go to like your food banks or your impoverished areas, I just don't see, we're not all middle class. It's getting more divided.
Just going back to our previous story, don't we? That use of food banks has gone up by 398%. So clearly we're not all.
Amazing.
Yeah, not at all. Like, I think people are experiencing more horrific poverty more than equally in any age. Yeah,
it's going to lead to disaster eventually, unless.
And this is why you get your riots and things. Like, psychologically, if you're on your minimum wage job, especially in London, like, you come out of wherever you work and like you see all these swanky flats that no one can afford and stuff. Psychologically, like, is it any surprise we have riots and protests? And
well, this was what I was going, because Paris, there's been quite a few riots based in or around racial segregation and that type of thing. Do you think that that's something that we might end up seeing happen in the UK at some point?
Well, we've already seen, in 2011, the London riots, which were immediately blamed on thugs and chavs and what have you. Yeah, exactly. But there was nothing delving into the systemic failings that caused those riots. Like, I mean, it's all right to cast people off as hooligans and chavs and whatever, but you've got to look beneath things and this bubbling up, this kind of frustration.
But the thing is about that, right? It is true, though. It is true. The point is, a lot of them are hooligans and chavs.
Well,
but the question is, why are they hooligans and chavs in the first place, right?
So like you said, there's a frustration bubbling possibly under the surface, and you feel like it was just, in that situation, it was just kind of,
just came out,
fobbed off a little bit as
and I think the really interesting irony of those London riots is that this kind of articulates like the ubiquity of neoliberal capitalism, is because the first items that those rioters were stealing were the pillars of consumerism. Like, they were stealing TVs, trainers, so it goes in a circle. Like, there were riots like against it, but psychologically they're still stealing the things.
This is what we can't have.
Yes.
But it's in your face.
It is.
Exactly.
Sticking it right in your face.
That's great, gentlemen. Thanks very much for that. It's time now for another break, but don't go away. We'll be back in just a few moments to talk about the rest of the day's news.